Hello everybody, this is Akash Kumar. So today I am going to show you one of the best game of the Sicilian richter rouzer. So this was the game between Julian and Vladimir Kramnik. So Kramnik, he was playing black piece and the white started with the pawn e4. Pawn to c5, Sicilian defense. Knight to f3, knight to c6, pawn to d4. Now the open Sicilian on the board. Pawn capture pawn, knight capture pawn. Knight f6, knight c3. And after knight c3, here black is having many of the popular choice, which is start with the pawn a6, Nashrov, pawn to g6, dragon Sicilian, and pawn to e5, Sicilian Sveshnikov. And Kramnik didn't go in any of these variation. He played pawn to d6 and the bishop g5. This is the Sicilian richter rouzer. So after Sicilian richter rouzer, the general move, pawn to e6, queen d2, bishop e7. They both are developing long castle, short castle. Now, Sicilian richter rouzer, the main plan for the both player is to attack the opposite wings. Pawn to f4. Black trade of the one pair of the knight and queen to a5. So black plan is very simple. Bishop d7, rook d8, rook c8. These all can be planned. So after qa5, bishop to c4. Bishop d7, rook d6. Oh my god. So Julian played rook to d3. Is very immediate rook left, looks like little nightmare for white. So after rook d3, rook d8, rook a d8, rook g3. Idea is maybe like bishop s6 and pinning the g7 pawn and attacking the black king rapidly. So black immediately gets his king out from that g file. King to h8. Now pawn to e5. Central thrust. So pawn capture pawn, queen capture pawn. That's also is one of the variation. But in the game, pawn capture pawn was played. But let's see what happened if he capture with the pawn, queen capture pawn. Queen capture pawn. Kramnik had a two best choice, queen to b4. Simply attack the bishop, and if bishop retreat, then he can simply go to bishop c6, and black gets good balance and good simplification and some equalization in the position. And even queen c5 is also some sort of the after queen suppose queen c5, queen capture queen, bishop capture queen. So now this is okay for black. Black is all over okay. So that's why maybe white denied queen capture. He captured with the pawn. And instead saving knight, Kramnik played bishop c6 because he has this discovery. White played queen to e3, so finally knight retreats to g8, saving himself. Bishop d3, getting the other piece into the kingside attack. Kramnik simply went on the exchange because if the attacks come to you and if the queen are on the board, so the basic idea is to exchange the queen if you want to neutralize opponent attacks. So white exchange because he saw that he's going to double the black pawns. So that's okay for black because that's not much plus for white. It's okay because that double pawn is not giving any bad for black. So after pawn capture queen, Julian played rook to e1. Rook to e1 idea is simple, getting the last piece into the action. Vlad capture the bishop, rook capture bishop, and rook d4. Idea is I'm going to double my rook. So bishop e4 and Vladimir played knight to e7. Just in case if bishop capture bishop, pawn capture bishop, knight capture bishop means he has a two option and maybe knight g6. So after this move, Julian retreats the rook back, rook g3. So after rook g3, Kramnik played knight g6. Idea, I'm going to take a pawn. So bishop capture bishop. Julian captured the bishop and he gives Vladimir chance to relieve the double pawn. So now the finally pawn is well protected by rook. And after this move, pawn capture pawn, Julian played pawn to b3. After pawn to b3, Kramnik doubled the rook. So rook f to d8. White played rook f3, attacking this pawn, king g8, and the move pawn g3. Maybe stopping this f4, h4, and this all stuff. So black goes for the pawn to h5. Maybe he wants to break, or he played for that. He played that move. So after pawn to h5, knight a4. This pawn b5, knight b2. Kramnik is now very active. He looks black pieces are doing fine, better than white pieces. So king b1. After king b1, Kramnik played rook to d2. Finally, he's entered the white second rank and now look like completely dangerous for white. So pawn to h4. He saved his pawn. Kramnik played knight to e7. Opponent doubled. White doubled the rook. I'm going to win this pawn. Black said, it's okay, you can win that. I have knight d5 because I am going to play some variation which is including the f7 pawn sacrifice. So after rook capture pawn, knight check, king here, and Kramnik is having this. But his rook is in danger. So first of all, he has to save the rook with this. And he has to deal with this. How to save that a2 pawn? So white played pawn to a4. Immediately break. So pawn capture pawn, knight capture pawn, knight capture knight, pawn capture knight, rook capture pawn. So now black rooks, both rooks are very active. And now you can see the rook endgames has come on the board. And now you know the Kramnik is well known as the endgame player. So now it's completely going to be win for him. You'll see that how he'll win. So after rook capture a4, Julian played rook f2, offering the rook trade. Kramnik declined. He captured the pawn. White gone for that hanging pawn. Black goes for the hanging pawn. So there are some calculative moves, some calculation. White capture, black capture, white capture. Black capture. So finally, Vladimir managed to be a pawn up in the endgame. So after rook capture this, Julian went on to attack this pawn. Check, king d2. Now the pawn is promoting. So as known as we know the fact, Kramnik pawn is always passer. So pawn to h4, white played rook g3. Exchange the rook. He wants to exchange the rook. Vlad declined that exchange. King s7. He played king to e2. So after king to e2, Vladimir went on this, attacking the c2 pawn. Then white capture rook, pawn capture rook. And now rook here, offering rook exchange again, because if Kramnik capture this, so now the game will be forced raw, because look, if rook capture rook, king capture rook, black can simply win this, and after this, he has this. So if black goes to stop this, white can simply stop this both pawn. So this was a very simple and basic idea which white was doing. So Kramnik declined the exchange. He captured the pawn and he checked the king. Opponent played king e3. Kramnik played king g6, rook a1, king h5, and now you can see the black pawns are completely gonna be passed pawn and white resigned. in this situation. So thank you guys. This was for this game.